Today, we're going to talk about some of the more logistic things when it comes to getting hired as a fully remote, work from anywhere employee. We wanted to bring this up because I'm constantly getting questions. Marissa's getting questions about legal stuff. Okay, so for example, I want to apply for a company that lets me work from anywhere. And people will ask questions like, well, what do the taxes look like? Do I have to be a citizen of this country in order to be hired by this company? Or this company said to me, I need to be hired as a 1099 contractor. And there's all of these little things that feel overwhelming. They feel burdensome and heavy, like tax stuff, that will actually keep a lot of people from trying this. Because it's like, okay, overwhelm, can't do it, not going to do it, not even going to try. So we wanted to explain what these things mean specifically when you're seeing these job listings, so that you understand what you're getting into and realize that it's actually really not that daunting at all. It just seems very intimidating from a legalese standpoint, from a logistics standpoint. So with that, Marissa, do you have anything to add before we just jump into this thing?
I do. Of course I do. What I would like to add is what we're seeing is a lot of people, a lot of you, as you're going to apply to jobs, as you see listings in our emails, as you're inside of our program and you're getting support to say like, oh, now you know what you really want to do, the companies you're looking for. And then a lot of you are getting just like very overwhelmed because you're not sure, like, can you legally work for this company? If it says that they're in this location, but you're from this country, do you have permission to, is it worth your time to apply? Because are you just not eligible anyway? So it's just, I feel like if you're listening and you are wanting to get a remote job that lets you work from anywhere so you can travel the world as a digital nomad. And we also want to talk about traveling, kind of bopping around the world as Jeff and I have done for a long time, versus maybe you want to just go move to another country, or you're from another country wanting to work for a company somewhere else. If this is sounding overwhelming, confusing, I'm trying to do that because this is what it feels like in most people's brains. So we are going to just lay this out as simply as we can for you. I will say it's simple in ways, and it's a lot of nuances depending on where you're from, what you're looking for. So I think, our goal by the end of this podcast is you will understand each of the kind of aspects to think about as you're looking at companies, as you're applying to companies, and what you want your lifestyle to be. Because there's not a one size blanket fits all, because everyone here, you might be from a different country. You might be interested in a company that's from a different country. You might want to move to a different country every month. You might want to just go move to Spain for the rest of your life. Like, everything really depends on you. So we're going to give you the most generalized aspects of this that we can, so that you know how to make this work for your situation.
Yeah, I think that's probably the extent of as far as we can go, because if people start asking things about how do I become an expat in another country, I mean, you've got to talk to your tax person. Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to talk to your tax person.
We'll tell you who to talk to. We'll tell you what to think about. But that is, everything gets really nuanced based on like where your passport is, where you want to go, what you want to do, so many things. So we'll tell you what to look into. We can't give an answer for absolutely everything, but there's sort of 5 different things we're going to cover here that by the end you should have a much better understanding of what it means as you go to apply to these jobs and these companies and these roles, and as you look for these work from any roles that give you the freedom to live your life where and how you want.
Yeah, so basically for anybody looking for a work from anywhere lifestyle, we've pretty much got that covered. Any more specific detail about moving somewhere legally, we'll send us a message and we'll try to point you in the right direction if we can. What's the first thing?
So first thing we want to talk about is the difference between a company that lets you work from anywhere and a company that is hiring employees from anywhere. People are getting this confused. Jeff is getting a lot of madness in the DMs of people who are confused about this on LinkedIn. So I'm going to let Jeff actually start with this, because I feel like this is your wheelhouse. But there is a distinction, like a lot of what I guess, let me just give to start, and I'm going to let you break it down, Jeff. But the difference is, what we are talking about on this podcast and in everything that we do are companies that let you work from anywhere, so that you can travel the world. We're going to teach you how, we teach you how to find companies that let you work from anywhere based on where you are. But not all companies do hire people, a resident from anywhere in the world. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Marissa, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to let Jeff explain it. So Jeff, break it down for us.
Yeah, this is the biggest confusion. I'm glad we're getting to this one first.
Yeah, first and foremost.
Because
it's like the top of the pyramid, the base of the pyramid, whichever way.
It is. It's the base of the pyramid. So what we send out on a daily basis, also what I publish on a weekly basis, are work from anywhere jobs. People see that. It'll say work from anywhere on it. They go and click on the link, and it'll say hiring U.S. citizens, Canadian citizens. And they'll come back to me and say, this is not a work from anywhere job. Understand that confusion. You've probably seen that before too. Totally understandable. The problem here is that we are looking at two completely different things. The first thing, work from anywhere. We need to understand what work from anywhere means. Work from anywhere is an employee mobility policy, right? So this has to do with existing employees, has nothing to do with getting hired. This has to do with how the company treats their employees' mobility once they are an employee. So what it means is when you've got an employee and you have an employee mobility policy, that employee is able to work from anywhere in the world. They do not care. And any true work from anywhere company does not have any restriction on that, right? So somebody came to me the other day and said, well, all work from anywhere companies have a requirement that you can only be traveling internationally for 90 days or 120 days, whatever the example is. And I said, that's completely false. That is not accurate in any sort of way. That's not a work from anywhere company. That would be like a fully remote company or a remote friendly company, and they've got
remote friendly,
exactly. So
travel a little bit every now and then.
Exactly. And there's various reasons why they do that. It could be tax related. Yeah, probably tax related. It could be insurance related. It could be anything. It could be just security. Like they don't want you gone that long. It might have to do with time zone. It doesn't matter. This is not a work from anywhere company that does this, right? And when you hear this, just know that this is not standard policy. I've had people write to me and say it's standard policy for work from anywhere companies to make sure that you're only traveling a certain amount of time. That's not true. 100% not true. Okay, so work from anywhere is a remote working policy. It basically states your employees can work from anywhere in the world. Now, they may ask you to work specific time zones. We'll get into that in a little bit more. That's unrelated. And that's also on you, right? You can work from anywhere, but hey, we've got operating hours and you've got meetings that you need to attend. Sorry, if you want to go to Bali, you might have to be, taking calls at 2 a.m. That's a trade-off. That's totally fair. Like, that's on you. If you decide to go do that and you're at a company that has specific working hours, that's your choice. And that's fine. And that's nice to be able to have that choice. So that's a completely separate thing. Okay, so that's work from anywhere. Now, hiring from anywhere. This is where people get confused because they see these job listings. It says work from anywhere. And then they go to the job listing. It says hiring U.S. employees, or I see a lot of hiring UK citizens kind of thing. And they're like, well, that's not work from anywhere. It is still work from anywhere. This is different. This is a hiring scope. And what this means is that this company is only able to legally employ new employees from specific areas. And the reason why they're only able to hire from specific areas covers it depends on the company, but usually it means they only have an entity in that specific location, right? Say they are just hiring employees of the UK. They may only have the UK equivalent of an LLC entity in the UK, and they cannot legally hire anywhere else. There's also tax implications too. So it's very complex. And I think, Marissa, you're going to get into this a little bit more later. It's very complex to sort out how to do taxes for employees who are not in where you're having an entity, right? So you're a UK company with an entity in the UK. You hire somebody in Australia. You've got all kinds of these new legal tax implications. And sure, they could sort that out. But if they're to do that for like one employee or two employees, it's almost like, no, it's not even worth the trouble. So they just won't. So they'll only hire people who are citizens of that country so that they can do taxes and they can do billing in a way that's very familiar with them and it doesn't take a whole bunch of loopholes to go through. Okay, so hire from anywhere companies. These companies will hire from anywhere in the world. This is what you're looking for. So when you're thinking work from anywhere and they're like, oh, they're only hiring UK citizens. Okay, what you're actually looking for is a hire from anywhere company. These companies will literally hire from any country in the world, and usually that always comes with a work from anywhere policy attached to that.
Yeah.
Let me pause. That felt like a TED Talk seminar of just complex leads. Does that make any sense? Do you have any questions on that?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to give one super quick example so I think everything you said was really important. I'm glad you said it. It was a great TED Talk. I'm glad I came to it. I think anyone listening will too. You're welcome. So with that, just to kind of give you simply what Jeff was talking about. Let's say you have a company in Kenya. Let's say only people from Kenya can work for that company, but they can go travel anywhere around the globe. So I don't know, I'm a visual person. So imagine Kenya as a company, only Kenyans are working for that company, but those Kenyans can then travel all over the world wherever they want to go. That is a work from anywhere company. But if I, from the US, wanted to apply that company, I could not, because they cannot hire from anywhere. On the flip side, let's say you have that same company in Kenya and they are a hire from anywhere company. You have people from all over the world working for them, and they can travel anywhere on top of that. So just to give you kind of that concrete example. And this is where I think a lot of people just get so confused, because they're like, wait, you're saying this company is work from anywhere, but I'm from this country and I can't apply there because they won't even hire me. So that's the difference. And we're going to then stick with us now. It's like a waterfall of different topics that we'll talk about of what to do if you're like, okay, great, but I'm from this country, and how do I find a job how do I find a work from anywhere job, based on your residency and all of that. So we'll get there in just a sec. So that's just to start, again, the base of the pyramid, work from anywhere versus hire from anywhere. It's been a confusing topic for everyone. I don't think we've really, really gone into the details in this way. So now you've got the facts of work from anywhere versus hire from anywhere. Next, Jeff, can you we're going to talk now about a W-2 employee. I guess that for terms in the U.S., we call it a W-2 employee, but someone who's like an employee of a company versus someone you might be working for a company as a contractor. This is kind of the next level of freedom of how you can kind of work around some of these things if somewhere is not a hire from anywhere type of company. So with that, Jeff, can you break down what it means to be W-2 or working for a company, whatever that means in the country, versus a contractor working for a company?
This is also an important one because it scares people away too, because they'll see some of these job listings and it'll say 1099 contractor and they're like, well, I'm not a contractor. I don't know. How do I do that?
Right.
Let's break that down. I'm going to talk about what they are, and then we'll talk about why some of these companies are doing this, these work from anywhere companies. So most people are probably most familiar with W-2 because a W-2 is a tax designation for an employee of a company. It means you're on the payroll. The company is withholding your income taxes. You're paying your Social Security. They're taking out your Medicare and all that kind of stuff. Legally, these companies are bound to specific types of legal protections like workers' comp. I think if you're non-salary, there's overtime type of stuff. There's anti-discrimination laws, unemployment, all of the legal stuff that a lot of the legal trainings you have to go through the company are because you're a W-2 employee. You have to go to your sexual harassment training. You have to check that box and all that kind of stuff. So you've got a lot of entitlements and you've got a lot of protection with being part of the company. And usually it includes some sort of mandatory benefits. I think you've got a mandatory amount of days off, sometimes health insurance to a certain extent, retirement, all that kind of stuff. So with this, the employer has a lot of control, but you also have protections. So they get to decide your hours, your time zones, when you work, where you work, right? But you've got a lot of these protections. They can't just usually fire you for no reason. They can't take away your benefits, anything like that. So you've got protection, but not a whole lot of flexibility. Now, 1099 is technically an independent contractor. You kind of are your own business. So you just get paid money. Money gets put into your account, You're now responsible for your estimated taxes, what you do with that money, and how you pay yourself that money, meaning like pulling out the deductions that you need, the taxes, all that kind of stuff. I don't think there's really ever a case where you get benefits, really. They may, 1099 companies, they may pay you stipends, like here's your health and wellness. You get $1,000
Right.
a quarter for health and wellness. You get like a gym membership, right? Or you get your tech stipend. Like here's for Wi-Fi. Here's for your router. Here's for whatever you need to do to set up your stuff. So with that, there's full freedom and flexibility. Typically, you kind of set your own hours. If they do have hours, it's a little bit more lax. Like, okay, well, they're a contractor. They're getting paid for knowledge work, and it's a little bit more freedom in that. And you may have to work specific hours, but as a contractor, it's a little bit more passive. It is on that side. It's a little bit riskier because they can drop an employee, or rather a contractor, a lot easier than they can drop an employee. There's like almost no loopholes. Like, hey, we're done here. It's over. Unless you've got...
Right. It's not like severance that you get for a layoff and things like that.
Right. Right. Exactly. So there is less job security with it, but there's a ton of freedom with that because you're not necessarily bound to these employee policies in the same exact way. Yeah, they can say as part of working with us, you have to attend specific meetings, but they can't really tell you, which hours you have to work. Usually not how many hours you have to work. Where you can work is the biggest thing here. Is your 1099. The internal employee mobility policies don't really apply to you because you're not an employee and you're not internal. You're external, right? So the biggest...
It sort of solves like the tax issue, right? Like for so many companies, lot of companies in general want to, keep you like a little mouse, the cat and a mouse game in their office regardless. So not those companies, but there are some companies who would be like, I would love to let you work from anywhere employee, but taxes and legally, I'm going to have to, they're going to have to pay if you go off to Mexico, they're going to have to pay taxes in Mexico because you are there. If you go off to Spain, they're going to have to pay taxes in Spain because you are there. And they don't have maybe, a headquarters or any sort of like operation set up in the country. So they're paying additional taxes because you've decided to go off and travel. And that's why most, well, I don't know, maybe call it 50-50. The ones who don't want to lock you in an office regardless, who would let you travel if it weren't for taxes, that's why they're not. And we're going to talk about another way to work around that in just a second, but this is one of the main ways that companies can work around that is that you are not an employee of their company. So if you're off in Mexico or Spain or Bali or South Africa or wherever you want to be, it doesn't matter because you are your own, like you have to deal with your own taxes, which is a story for a different day. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but it is a workaround for companies so that you can work from anywhere, be hired from anywhere. So that covers both of those boxes if you work as a contractor. But as Jeff said, I think the scariest part for people, especially as I put on my US lens, is that so many people will say, but like, what about health insurance and benefits? And like you said, Jeff, the protection you get not to get fired in the same way. So it is a little bit riskier, but again, you have the freedom to work from anywhere, to be anywhere, to do anything, to go live your life. And there's something to be said for that. So I have so many friends who that was their biggest fear of like, what about health insurance? Like, I don't want to go do this thing on my own because health insurance. So there are other ways you can get your own health insurance. You pay for it. It's different, but you're free and you have the freedom to travel and, explore the world and work as you want. So that's a huge benefit there. Anything else on this topic before we go to the next one, Jeff?
Also just saying, addressing that risk that, I did state that it is riskier.
Yeah.
That said, you can get fired from a job. The company can downsize. I mean, I've seen it happen so many times. All right, so you're working for a company, they lose one of their clients, got to cut 20% of the workforce. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing to do with your performance. I mean, working anywhere is a risk. And working as a contractor,
adding that, because it is kind of a false.
People think
it's a false
I'm
security.
Secure.
Maybe it's like 5% more secure.
Yeah. I mean, how many people come to us and say, "Hey, I got laid off." I get this
so many
daily. Messages daily. Yeah. Hey, got laid off from XYZ. Thought it was secure. It's not. There's no company that's secure. There's no role that's secure. So there's this thinking that
So you might as well be free.
You might, if nothing is certain, you might as well be on a beach while it's uncertain, right?
You know what it reminds me of,
That's a
Jeff?
good
I
line.
think we talked about this. So, what'd you say?
And nothing is certain, so if nothing is certain, you might as well be on a beach while it's uncertain.
Oh, love it, Jeff.
Yeah,
Yes, that should be like our new tagline of Beach Commute. That really is the heart of everything we say.
Yeah.
But I love thinking of in terms of uncertainty. What I was going to say about it's like that false sense of certainty is, I feel like we used this analogy like years ago on this podcast, but have you ever seen the video where it's like there's an ant walking around and they take a Sharpie on a piece of paper and they draw a circle and the ant will stay in that circle. So it's like, it thinks it's like a secure line, but it's not. It could literally just walk past it. And I feel like it's the same thing of the way that so many of us, maybe you listening, think about the security of a job, where it's like, it's just like a fake line. Like, it's not real. And it's like, there's a few more benefits you get temporarily, but they can also disappear just as quickly as working as a contractor can.
Yeah, 100%. So.
Yeah. So before we explain this next part, I also want to say, if you're listening and you would like a job that lets you work from anywhere and you're not yet on our email list, go to beachcommute.com/email. We do send out work from anywhere jobs. A lot of these different, both contractors, W-2 stuff, but all different types of work from anywhere roles that we send out in our emails each day. So if you would like to get those, go to beachcommute.com/email. They're super helpful. It can help you to land a fully remote job that lets you travel. Okay, so the next part. So we've talked now about work from anywhere versus hire from anywhere. We've talked about W-2 versus contract. Now there's another way that employees that you can get paid working for a company, not as a contractor, but it kind of feels like you still get these freedoms in a different way. So typically, let's say you want to work for Jeff. You're getting hired at Jeff Inc., right? So you go to him and you're either going to be an employee of Jeff Inc. or a contractor at Jeff Inc. There's kind of this other workaround that's behind the scenes, like a third party that a lot of people don't know exists, that some of these companies are doing. And it's what's called having an employer of record. So instead of you going to work for Jeff Inc., you actually get hired by a third party called an employer of record or a global employment platform. Don't worry about the words. Just imagine like this third party that's paying you. And that company legally has entities like all over the world in different countries and can hire and pay people in their local residencies and currencies, and they invoice the company. So let's say Jeff is going to pay me $10,000 a month. Instead of Jeff paying me directly, he pays the employer of record or this global employment platform, and that company pays me. So I'm kind of working as an employee for Jeff. It feels like it, but it's like the invisible payment is coming from somewhere else. So it's kind of like a third party in between. And it's a way that a lot of companies now can hire from it, like hire global talent. They don't have to worry about where, you're running off to on your digital nomad travels or what you're doing, because this other company that can legally pay you wherever you are is paying you, and Jeff is just paying that company is paying them. So that might feel a little bit confusing, but you don't have to know it. It doesn't really matter, but it's kind of a way that you can still feel like an employee, get paid kind of a typical paycheck, but the companies then are not responsible in the same way of keeping you in one location for tax purposes. So most of what we've talked about so far is really so a company doesn't have to pay taxes all over the world, rightfully so, and you can still travel. So this, I think, is important to understand, like all these three aspects we've talked about so far. If you're wondering, like, how on earth can you get hired from anywhere? Can you work from anywhere? Do you have the freedom to travel or live where you want? And these are some of the ways how so far. So we're going to talk about visas and taxes in just a second. But before we do, Jeff, maybe you have a better analogy or example or just way to explain it, because this is a really confusing one. Is there anything I missed or a simpler way you want to try to get that out?
So in these instances, it's still a green flag, and any of the companies that you look at the Anywhere Atlas or the ones that we send out are legit. These are not scam companies, so it's fine if it's coming from us. If it's not coming from us, just look at the parent company that you're actually trying to get hired with. If it's a legit company, and we've got podcast episodes on this, not handy, but we have podcast episodes on how to identify legit companies, then you're absolutely fine. And they're using an employer of record because this is kind of a workaround for them to not have to deal. They're getting access to the entire global talent pool, which is what they want, but they don't have to go through the hassle of figuring out all the employment laws, all the taxes, all the payroll type of stuff. They're just outsourcing that kind of stuff. So don't let that make you shy away from that role.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Jeff, this is before we head to visas and taxes. I have a question for you. Do you think, I meant to talk about this when we were talking about like contract work, at some point in the, I don't know how near future, do you think that everybody will just be a contractor or be hired like by an employer of record?
Love
like I
that
just
question.
can't, it doesn't okay, what do you think? It just doesn't make sense that we wouldn't do that now.
100% yes. 100% yes. And I've got a number of reasons for this. I mean, the first one is global talent pool, right? If you've got just an office, obviously your talent pool is like 50 miles around your office. That's it. If you're hiring out contractors, you've got the world as your talent pool. I mean, you're going to get the best talent literally in the world by doing this. Other things are, it actually makes more sense for the company to do this. It costs companies lots of money in unemployment, in benefits, all of these things. It's more risky for them to hire an employee because if that employee doesn't work out, a lot of times you can't just let them go. You have to go through this long process of offboarding them from the company for legal reasons, right? So it is a huge financial and time risk to hire an employee, and it's more costly because you're having to pay all of these extra things out of pocket. Also, these employees are working full time, and they may not necessarily be specialized and targeted. You know, a lot of times there's, you know, they're generalists, and there may be a lot of dead time during the week when they're working and they're getting paid a full salary. Whereas if you hire a contractor, a lot of times they're specialized. They're hiring out specialized positions, and they're going to get specialized people working in certain areas. And usually contractors, at least I've always been incentivized to get my work done really, really efficiently and really well done in a small amount of time, and then just be done, right? And that's kind of what companies want. They want the specialized work done really efficiently, really well, and really quickly. And then it doesn't matter what the hours were that they worked. They need the job done. They're hiring to get a job done, right? So that's why they're not so attached to clocks. They're not so attached to like a 9 to 5. It's just more like, can you get the job done? Can you get a job done well and quickly? And contractors are pretty good at doing that kind of thing. So really on both sides of the equation, it works great. Employee gets to have all the freedom that they want, and the company gets to have less liability, and they get to have a specialist coming in and doing the work. So yeah, I've actually read reports from people that say this is coming. This, especially in the marketing area, this is definitely coming, and it only kind of makes sense. I mean, it's almost like the, I don't know what they call the something economy. The gig
economy.
It is like an expanded version of that, and like more of like an advanced version of that, just giving certain portions of what you need and receiving different portions of specialized work. It kind of makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it goes along with every trend that we're seeing, you know?
Yeah. I think it's like, I think so much of this is so antiquated from just when companies first began and whatever, you know, legal and safety workarounds they had, both protection for employers and employees. And it makes me think, you know, when I first started working at Pepsi, even there was still pension. Like you used to have a pension that would, you know, pay you money once you retire at a certain age for the rest of, if you've worked at a company for, you know, like 20, 30, 40 years. But like the world is just so different now, and people are more mobile, and the internet has changed things. And I feel like a lot of these rules and taxes and just the way that employee-employer relationship is set up is just from so many years ago that's just kind of still here and keeping that weird circle around the ant for no reason anymore. And I'm excited to see, you know, it's like starting to change, and that's why these work from anywhere companies are popping up. That's why these employer of records and these, you know, it's a whole company that, or like a whole business model, I should say, you know, of these in between, these third party companies that didn't used to exist. So it's like things are changing, and I can't wait to see it keep changing. But it's like, I just think it's a very outdated model that just, it's kind of like the school system. Like things have changed, but it hasn't yet, even though it really needs to. So
yeah.
I don't know how long it will take. You know, we're pretty slow to move on things in the big grand scheme of like large corporations. But I do think that this trend, like if I fast forward 50 years, I'm like, if everyone's not just working as a contractor, even if you feel like a, quote, employee, it's just, why are we doing this? I don't know. But if things are complicated with taxes and country lines, I get that. So it's shifting, but
it just makes a lot of sense. Common sense is usually where people lean, and what is the most efficient.
I would say it's not where people usually lean.
I mean, I would say from a business standpoint, like what is the cheapest, what is the most effective. Like they're not going to go a more cost heavy route unless they're an enterprise that's just stuck and they're like turning a battleship. But like any any small nimble company is going to be like, oh, yeah, if we can get the same thing done for cheaper and faster, of course. And that really does point to contract work. So
there you go. So that's how, just another way that things are happening. Okay, the last two things we want to touch on briefly are visas and taxes. So visas, this is a big question a lot of people have. I don't know if we'll be able to find it, Jeff. If you want to do a quick search while I'm talking. I think we did a whole episode on this, so we won't go into as much detail, or feel free to just like browse through our catalog till you find a topic about visas. But a lot of questions that people have are, let's say you find your work from anywhere company, you get hired, and now you're like, wait, can I go live in Spain for a year? Can you go live in Morocco for a year? Can you go live in Bali or Thailand or Mexico or Argentina, wherever you want to go? And the answer is it really depends, and it depends a lot on you. And this is why we can't really give you very specific information, but I'll give you a broad generalization of two different ways to think about it. And you might have to go do some research yourself, because it really depends on where your passport is and where you want to be living and going. So if you want to live I would say like Instagram digital nomad life, or the life that Jeff and I have been living for the last like 8-9 years, which is we've never become an expat somewhere, which means we've never actually do have a residency in Mexico, but for other reasons. I've never lived in Mexico for a year, but I could now.
Humble brag.
I don't know why. I just want to know, it's like you do that sometimes for different reasons for tax stuff. But the point is, like, Jeff and I have not gone and settled for a year in a different country. Maybe we will one day. We haven't yet. But what we've been doing, and what a lot of digital nomads do, is you just are going anywhere with a typical travel visa, the same way you would go to the Bahamas for a week. Anywhere you go, you just see what the... Why do you have like a smile on your mouth, Jeff?
Nothing, just giggling.
What are you giggling at? Like,
no reason.
Okay, I don't know about this. But anyway, you might not think about it if you're just going on like week-long vacations, but typically any country you go to, you can usually stay for 30, 60, or 90 days as a tourist, like with no visa, or you have a visa, but it's a tourist visa and it's not something you like have to apply to get or do. So any of those, if you just want to go live for a month or 2 or 3 in some of these countries that you want to visit, you can work remotely and go do that without having absolutely any tax implications on your company or you. So if you have a residency in whatever country you're from, you keep on paying taxes there as if you're a normal resident, and you can go under these 30, 60, or 90-day visas. Sometimes you can even apply and or leave for a day or 2 and come back and it starts over. I'm not going to get into all of that. We've talked about this in a different episode, but...
Episode 58.
I think 58. That was a really long time ago.
You realize that was 3.5 years ago?
Oh my God. That's why I was like, I don't even begin to know. I can't believe you even found.
There's a search function in there. I didn't even realize that. I can pull these Johnny on the spot now.
Oh, amazing. Oh. Okay, perfect. So 58, if you want to listen to that. That's one. The other thing is there are different digital nomad visas now. So basically you either pay a set amount, or sometimes you pay taxes in that country instead of your own. There's lots of logistics to it. But it gives you at least permission to go live in a country for a year. And there's something I want to say over 60 different countries, maybe way more now, have digital nomad visas. There's a lot now. So it used to be if you wanted to go live somewhere for a year, you just kind of couldn't unless you found some way to kind of be a temporary resident or get a student visa.
73.
Okay. 73.
Jesus.
That's cool. It's growing so fast.
I remember when the first one popped up. We were having podcast episodes when the very first
5
one.
Years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was Estonia and Barbados maybe was one of the first ones.
Oh, it might have been Barbados.
I think it was
the first
Barbados.
One.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And now all these countries are doing it. So there's, again, more and more freedoms. Again, this is like you said, Jeff, in the time that we've just started this podcast, those now exist that didn't used to. So it's pretty cool. There are much better ways now, and like Japan and like, just so many different countries that you can just have permission to go stay for a year, which is really important because we underestimate how many people just want to go do that. We like to travel all over the world, but a lot of you listening just have a dream to go like spend a year or two in a very specific country just to experience that you want to go and necessarily even travel. And that gives you permission to do that now. So there's still fees and things involved. So do your research, but that's another way that you can legally do that while working for a country or different company or having a residency in whatever country you are from. And then there's other ways to kind of become an expat or get a residency or stay long term. We're not going to get into that today, but I just want you to know that those are kind of the 3 or 4 like different ways that you can spend extended time in countries and not have to like pay taxes in that country or worry about like living in that country or getting long-term visas or just there's all this different stuff. So don't worry about that. Do your research for the specific way that you know that you want to live. And it does take a lot of research for that. It is complicated, but if you know you want to go live in Spain, for example, like find someone who specializes in getting visas to live for an extended time in Spain or get a digital nomad visa in these countries, that sort of thing. It shouldn't, I guess the overall message I want to say, if we circle back to the beginning of like the intro of this topic or the intro of this podcast, I should say, was like, do not let this stop you from pursuing a work from anywhere or hire from anywhere job. Like if you are having a dream to work, travel the world as a digital nomad, different country every month or two, or live in specific countries, just go pursue work from anywhere companies or being a contractor for a company that lets you work from anywhere, and then start to figure out, okay, there's always a way. That's what I will say to make this work. Like you will find a way to get a visa. You will find a way to, temporarily travel around or get a digital nomad visa or a residency, whatever you're looking for. Pursue that separately, and don't think about that as part of your job search because it will stop you before you ever start. You will feel so confused, so overwhelmed, and I know you just won't do anything. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
No, I think we covered everything there.
Yeah, it's like
everything
so much,
and
just like we want to keep it somewhat simple. But I think the biggest takeaway is like just don't even think about visas as you're searching for your work for anywhere job. Get your job and then figure it out because there's a way.
Yeah.
So the last part of anything we want to talk about today are taxes. We've sort of mentioned this from a company perspective along the way. I think it's important to know why a lot of companies don't let people just go work from anywhere. And it's because they're legally required to pay taxes if you go settle down in, I don't know, Egypt, and you're not in Egypt, a resident of that country, or they don't have a LLC or, any sort of headquarters or base in that country. But personally, I know this holds people back a lot is you're like, what the fuck do you do with your taxes? Like, do you pay in your country where you are? Do you have to pay everywhere you go? What do you do with your visa? Like, how does that? Jeff and I are not the tax experts, and it's so confusing that we don't want to be the tax experts. They are experts at that for a reason. But what I will say is listen to episode 175. I interviewed the person that, we use for our tax expert stuff for everything. He's an international lawyer and specializes and has more knowledge than anyone I've ever met when it comes to taxes as a digital nomad. So go listen to that episode. But I will say as a whole, like I would give you the same advice as I just did for visas, which is just go get your job and then figure it out afterwards. Like there's so many of us who are doing it. It's confusing. It can be as confusing or loopholes as you make it. There's lots of workarounds for taxes. But at the very least, the best I can explain it is if you're traveling as a digital nomad like Jeff and I have done, you just pay taxes in your home, your country, your home of residence, wherever your address is. And if you just stay within your, travel, your, what do you call it? Like visas of just like your tourist vacation type, where you're just 30, 60, 90 type days, you don't even have to think about it. You just pay it in your home and you don't overstay your visas. You're not obligated to pay taxes anywhere else. If you are going to be a resident or stay for an extended time with a digital nomad visa or things in different countries, just do some research on what you're going to have to pay for the place that you want to go. And it is literally different for every single country in the world. So Jeff and I cannot tell you that and also depends on where you are from, which is why we doubly cannot give you a straight answer here. But know that it's solvable. It works out. There are literally like millions and millions and millions of digital nomads living life this way, and just figure it out as you go is truly the best that I can do. Don't let it overwhelm you. Get your job, figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, and talk to an expert who helps with this. And we can link to the expert who we work with as well if you want to work with him directly or find whoever you want. That's my kind of best advice without being able to give you tons of detail everywhere. Anything to add to taxes? I know it's also not your favorite topic, Jeff.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just there's no working from anywhere as a digital nomad point that's ever come up in the years and years of doing this with any of us. Unless somebody is settling down permanent, more or less, there's nothing to even talk about. You're on a tourist visa. A lot of places that, like, even on the tourist visa, I mean, you've overstayed in Mexico, I'm sure, before, right? And like we overstayed in Bolivia.
I never have.
Oh, you're such a square
Thank
bear.
you, Jeff.
Good for you. Yeah, bullshit. Actually, we overstayed in Bolivia.
Oh, you said Mexico. I said I haven't overstayed in Mexico.
Or Bolivia. I said Bolivia too.
Oh. We overstayed several days in Bolivia and had to pay
$4 a day,
like $15 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just not something you have to worry about, and that should never hold you back. Worry about that if you want to become an expat or a double citizen or something. That's a conversation for a different person a different day.
And there are even so many loopholes and benefits of paying fewer taxes, like with the FEIE. We won't get into all of that right now, but there's, but yeah, just know it's like, it can even be better, but we're not getting into that at the moment. Just think about it as like, deal with it as you go. Don't think about it. I feel like it's the same as like starting a business. If you think about all the 5,000 things you have to do, you would never start it. But it's like, just take one step, one foot in front of the other with all of this and figure it out as you go. Because if you try to solve your visas, your taxes, and your job as you're applying, like, you will never apply to a company. Nothing will ever look right. You'll be confused. You won't know what to do. So just like put your horse blinders on and apply to the jobs, get hired, get your work from anywhere job, sign up for our email list, beachcommunity.com/email to get all the jobs sent to you so you can find them and apply to these things, and then figure them out as you go. And the internet is the internet's an overwhelming place. Don't go Google stuff, but find solid resources like the people we're sharing with you here. Don't look on Facebook threads or Reddit threads for stuff like this. You will also never get a job and never go anywhere if you believe everything you see there. And I don't know, that's the last thing I have to say, Jeff. Anything to add?
Nope, that's it.
Perfect. Well, I guess then if that's it, if you want to give us a 5-star rating, if you open your Spotify or your Apple on your phone right now, we would appreciate it so much. It helps more people find this, and it helps us keep sharing more information like this with you if you found it helpful. And with that, now we're officially done, and we will see you next week.